Morocco wasn't a prime location to spread its borders during the Age of Discovery, and many of you will probably know that they didn't forge a lasting empire. But that's not to say they didn't try. There were plans to challenge the Spanish in the Americas and even retake Spain itself. As such, they tried forging alliances with the English, plus they even marched south to take over Mali, and had they kept Mali for a long period of time, they would have had an almost unlimited amount of gold arriving from West Africa, and with that their empire would have been born. So a little context. In the 1500s, Portugal had created an empire spreading across Brazil, Africa and into Asia, but they tried numerous times to establish a foothold in Morocco. They had taken the likes of Tangier and Azamor, but by the middle of the 16th century they were suffering from political turmoil. Meanwhile, the Saadi dynasty had come to power in Morocco, and they had some grand ambitions from the start. They had removed the Wattasids from power and forced the Portuguese to leave Agadir, Safi and the likes. They then even took on the Ottomans by taking Tlemcen in the 1550s and made their first incursion south into the Songhai Empire. The Songhai Empire ruled over a rich land thanks to their salt mines, and as early as 1540, Sultan Ahmad al-Ouahed requested control over the mines at Tagaza. This was denied and led to a couple of raids by both parties, but for now the borders remained the same. Well, in the late 16th century, Abd al-Malik took the throne of Morocco from his nephew Abu Abdallah. Abu Abdallah asked the Portuguese for assistance, and the new Portuguese king Sebastian I agreed. But of course, he wasn't just interested in helping Abu Abdallah. Portuguese were beginning to fear that the Ottomans were growing too powerful and could spread west and soon challenge Christian dominance in the Atlantic. After all, they were a key supporter of Tlemcen before the Moroccans invaded it, and they helped al-Malik come to power in the first place. So Sebastian, who had been keen on launching a crusade, mustered together an army in the 1570s. This army consisted of volunteers and mercenaries from across Europe, and they met al-Malik at Quibir. The Portuguese, however, were crushed in battle, with all of their men being killed or captured. But this battle has also been called the Battle of the Three Kings, as Sebastian, Abu Abdallah and al-Malik were all present and all died during the battle or shortly afterwards. In Portugal, this resulted in a succession crisis, which allowed the Spanish to take the crown and form the Iberian Union. What's more, the vast majority of their nobility, along with thousands of other men, were either dead or imprisoned in Morocco. And as for Morocco, Ahmad al-Mansur became the new king. He was the brother of al-Malik, and he ushered in a bit of a new period for Morocco. Fortunately for him, he had thousands of prisoners he could ransom to raise a bunch of cash at the beginning of his reign, and with this money he started to build the El Bardi Palace in Marrakesh, and he looked to become the new caliph. The title of caliph had gone pretty much unused for a couple of centuries, until the Ottomans claimed it in the 1500s. But al-Mansur looked to undermine them, unite the Muslims in the west, and take the title for himself. Plus he also had an advantage over the Ottomans. As the Ottomans were Turkic people who had fled from the east, they clearly had no blood connection to the former caliphs, while al-Mansur's Saadi dynasty claimed descent from the Prophet himself. He approached the Muslim states in West Africa just to reassure them that he planned on reuniting the Islamic world under his rightful rule, and challenged the Europeans who were setting up bases in Africa. The most important states in the region, by the way, were Bornu, Mali and Songhai, and he hoped that they would willingly submit to his authority. After all, the old caliphs had ruled over a vast amount of land, and included people of all ethnicities, and the Ottomans were currently doing the same in the east. Anyway, there was another reason why Morocco would be interested in West Africa, and that's gold. The region was filled with mines pumping out an almost unlimited supply, and it was believed that most of the gold in Europe came from here. This is why Guinea coins were called guineas, named after the region of Guinea in West Africa. And as a side note, the discovery of a trade route to West Africa saved Europe from near destruction. This is because in the 15th century there was a great bullion famine, which, in short, meant the Europeans had very little silver or gold left. A lot of their mines had been exhausted, and trading deficits with the East meant they were losing the remaining precious metals that they did have. And this was one of the motivations behind the Portuguese exploration, but that's a video for another time. Anyway, as for Songhai, their ruler Askia Daud sent gold to al-Mansur in order to appease him. But when Askia died, the empire was thrown into chaos, as various leaders tried to gain control of salt mines and the throne. So in 1590, al-Mansur sent a few thousand men across the Sahara, equipped with European cannons, and under the command of a Spanish eunuch named Judar Pasha, they arrived in Songhai. At the Battle of Tondibi, the Songhai sent 1,000 cattle to stampede the Moroccans, but cannon fire caused them to panic and flee in the opposite direction, causing chaos in the Songhai ranks. The roughly 20,000 Songhai troops were then mown down by Moroccan guns, and the battle was over. The capital city of Goa had already been evacuated, but without an army left, the Songhai could do little to stop the Moroccans from looting Timbuktu and Jenné. The Songhai Empire was thus brought under Moroccan rule, and the remnants of the Songhai formed the Dendi Kingdom in modern-day Mali. However, this wasn't necessarily a resounding success for the Moroccans, as they now controlled a vast, almost ungovernable land. Plus, the gold mines al-Mansur desired were far further south than anticipated, meaning the Moroccans weren't just able to extract the unlimited supply of gold immediately. Meanwhile, Mali also tried to exploit the chaos in the region by seizing the city of Jenné in 1599, but the Moroccans were quick to respond and once again crushed the West Africans with modern guns. This battle nearly wiped out another army, and another empire was thrown into chaos. So al-Mansur had essentially destroyed 2 empires in less than a decade. And although the gold mines were a lot further south than anticipated, that's not to say they didn't extract a large amount of wealth. Judar Pasha had Songhai scholars enslaved and sent north, and the cities of Goa and Timbuktu were looted. Gold from these cities were loaded onto camels and sent back north across the desert, ready for al-Mansur to begin preparing his next audacious move. He looked to invade Spain and the Americas. To do this he needed an ally, and he found one in Queen Elizabeth I of England. The English had already been trading in Morocco via the Barbary Company, where they got sugar in exchange for weapons. Trading, especially trading weapons with Muslims, was of course banned by the Pope, but England was now a Protestant country, often warring with the Spanish, so they paid no attention to this. The papal ambassador, by the way, said, "There is no evil that is not devised by that woman, who, it is perfectly plain, succoured Morocco with arms and especially with artillery." Plus, I should say that Protestants often worked alongside Muslims during this period. For instance, Janszoon, a Dutchman, converted to Islam and joined the Barbary pirates in raiding the Europeans. And Protestant nations would often work with the Ottomans and the likes. Anyway, the Moroccans sent an ambassador to England in 1600, and the 2 countries began to make preparations to invade Spain, or at least their colonies. Al-Mansur knew he needed the English navy to help in this conquest. After all, they had just defeated the Spanish Armada, while Elizabeth wanted around £100,000 to provide these ships to him. But negotiations stalled as neither could agree who would send what first. But Al-Mansur reassured the English, particularly Jasper Thompson, the English ambassador in Morocco, that he could provide enough men and resources to carry out the invasion, and furthermore he promised that the English could keep any land that they seized. He also emphasised the fact that he had just conquered Songhai, and allegedly 86,000 cities inside that empire. So the 2 leaders continued to make plans, and al-Mansur often called Elizabeth the Sultana. But not all Englishmen were happy with this arrangement, as some sailors would even refuse to carry letters back to Morocco. John Chamberlain, for instance, wrote it was a matter odious and scandalous to the world to be friendly and familiar with infidels. Yet Henry Pranell continued negotiations for her, and it seemed that the English were getting tired of constant plans, most of which were changing a lot. But one plan rekindled their interest: attack the Spanish colonies in America. Elizabeth demanded once again a large sum of money to help rebuild her navy, and al-Mansur agreed, but he needed an English warship to carry such a large sum of money from Africa to England. As for the division of the colonies, al-Mansur wrote, "We must treat of your army and of our army, which shall go to those countries. Of peopling the land after that, with the help of God, we shall have subdued it. For our intent is not only to enter upon the land to sack it and leave it, but to possess it, and that it remain under our dominion for ever, and, by the help of God, to join it to our estate and yours. And therefore it shall be needful for us to treat of the peopling thereof, whether it be your pleasure it shall be inhabited by our army or yours, or whether we shall take it in our own charge to inhabit it, with our own army without yours, in respect of the great heat of the climate, where those of your country do not find themselves fit to endure the extremity of the heat there." So here he is happy to share the colonies with the English, but he's aware that the English may not do very well in the heat of the Americas. But he was obviously unaware that the English had already tried to establish some colonies, or at least claim land, like New Albion on the coast of California, or the lost colony of Roanoke. He goes on to say, "Furthermore, it shall be necessary that we treat of the division of the country between us and you, by the assistance of Almighty God, that it may be understood how the rents and profits thereof may be divided, that every one of each side may know his part, and that all things may be clear between us and you concerning our parts. So he was convinced of success in the Americas, and mainly just wanted to know how best to divide the Americas between them. However, in the early 1600s, everything changed. A plague swept across Morocco, and it is believed this plague killed al-Mansur in 1603. The country was then plunged into a decades-long civil war, during which they lost control over West Africa, and, of course, all colonial ambitions ended. Elizabeth had also died in 1603, and the Stuart dynasty that succeeded her were initially more inclined to favour repairing relations with the Spanish, so the Anglo-Moroccan alliance died. Therefore, obviously no invasion of the Spanish colonies took place, and Morocco would never again look to colonise the Americas. But interestingly, they were one of the first nations to recognise America as an independent nation. However, you can go nuts with potential alternative histories with this chain of events, like a continued Moroccan presence in West Africa during the scramble for Africa, an Islamic Venezuela for instance, or a Spain divided by Morocco and England. Also factor in the Portuguese would later seek their independence, so a potential invasion could take place from 3 directions, or if France was offered a piece of the pie, 4 directions. And my question to you is this: can you think of another country who many don't see as an imperial power, but who attempted to become one?